Hey folks, David Stewart here, coming at you today from a slightly different angle. And what I wanted to share with you is a book that's brought me a lot of enjoyment, joy, and inspiration over the years. A Tolkien Bestiary by David Day. If you don't know what a bestiary or a bestiary is, it is a compendium of beasts, that is animals. And in this case, it's all of the creatures that exist in Tolkien's world, kind of categorized alphabetically. And that includes things like elves, orcs, men, dwarves, hobbits, and lists all of their lore. So if you're looking for a fun exploratory book that dives into all the various lore that exists throughout Tolkien's books, this is a great one, but it's not the only reason I like it. This book is chock full of amazing fantasy art that has given me a lot of enjoyment and inspiration over the years. This book was given to me as a present for, I think, my 13th birthday by my aunt. I think the year before she died, actually, and I've really loved it over the years. Obviously, the cover's yellowed a little bit by age. That's not just your screen. It actually has gotten yellow, but I loved the way it looked right from the get-go. The dragon drew me in. There's several dragon illustrations that look like this. It's an ink drawing, very, very Baroque, very finely detailed, but very competent use of cross-hatching. And I love the fact that it's not a realistic or realist portrayal of a dragon. It's highly stylized in a way that, to me, reminds me of medieval art. And I liked that a lot. It made me really interested in this book when I saw it on the shelf. But that's not the only reason I like it. And not the only art that I like out of it. There's a whole lot in here. One of the things that I loved was actually this map, and I'm probably not doing it complete justice to show it on your screen like this, but this map had both the Middle-earth and the Undying Lands in a really extreme amount of detail. You could really zoom in with a magnifying glass, in fact, and see the huge amount of shading and detail that exists on this map. It's very different from the maps that I draw or the maps that are included with most Tolkien books, because those are made to be printed at a little bit lower printing quality. This is a very finely pinned and penciled image, probably made quite a bit bigger originally than this particular page. But boy, it looks good. And it includes Beleriand, like the original version of it before things were like destroyed by the Valar. And it also includes, where Udamno would be, where the lamps would be. Of course, these things were gone by the time you read Lord of the Rings, where Angbad was, and the Iron Mountains, where all of these things happen to be geographically to really help you visualize things. Maps very much draw me into fantasy worlds. That's why I like to draw them. There's one behind me on the wall back there. And my son really likes these as well. He likes to look at, whenever I have a map in a fantasy book, he loves to look at it and say, what's this, what's that? Oh, here's where Sauron is. He's over in Mordor. And things get really tight in this map here because this is where Lord of the Rings takes place. You can see it only takes place in a very small region compared to the entirety of the entire world that Tolkien created, including the Undying Lands where the Valar live. So I loved the map that was in this particular book, and I loved the timeline. They create a really great chronology here that breaks down the time periods of Middle-earth in a way that's easy to understand from somebody who hasn't cataloged it. So you have this, how creation happened in the Silmarillion. You have the ages of the lamps. You have the ages of trees. You have the split. Between the ages of the sun as things go on. You have all of the different events and where they occurred in what age or what year, just in kind of rough order, which is the fourth age. The third age of the sun is where you have most of the One Ring stuff happen, and the fourth age is where everything comes to a conclusion. So it lets you put all of the history of Middle-earth in a really big context as far as time goes, and then you have it listed here as well with the exact dates and what's overlapping, where different things were made. Here's Lothlorien. It's made right before the Third Age. Things go on like this. It's just great, a great way of presenting a lot of the lore of Tolkien in a way that's unique and easy to understand and easy to grasp. When I was a kid, this was very, very interesting to me. Because just reading the stories, it was difficult to figure out what was happening when. You didn't have a catalog like this to look at. Now here comes the actual bestiary part. You have a catalog of all of the different mythical beasts that existed. And with each catalog, you have art. And kind of in the medieval style, you have this art drawn around the outside. So it begins with the Ainur, of course, which were the angel-like creatures that were created by Iluvatar. and participated in the creation of the world through music, which of course interests me. So every page has some kind of art drawn to, even if it's just a picture of a plant. Athelos. You have, some pictures of some angry-looking dudes here. Balrogs, a beautiful ink drawing of Balrogs. And one of the things I love about this is that it focuses more on the ink, the pen and ink drawings, rather than large full-color plates. There are full-color plates in here, but the pen and ink drawings to me are what draws my eye, and there's a reason for that. When you draw something rather than paint it, you're doing a bit of an abstraction of the image, because if you look at me, there's no lines on my face, right? There's no lines delineating where one thing begins and where another ends, except maybe where like the shirt begins and my neck ends. You can interpret that as a line, but it's not. So when you draw things in a line, you're automatically abstracting the details that matter to create the impression of the creature that you're trying to make here. This Balrog breathing fire out of his nostrils, his overlarge hands. I really do love the art that's in here. You have a very frightening image of the Barrow-wights. This was kind of how I imagined them when I was first reading Lord of the Rings, was these extremely scary, withered creatures, and all of the extra Baroque details, the lines coming off. It's kind of like if you look at Scary Stories, some of those illustrations. Same idea. It creates a good horror atmosphere. And this goes on. If we look at some of the full color plates, these are also good. But you can see once we get to the painting, we are still dealing with a lot of abstraction, which I like. We're still dealing with an idea of the image, the impression of the image, rather than the image itself. Really, really great ideas and beautiful art expressing some of these ideas. And another thing I love with some of the full color plates like this one, this is a colored ink drawing, like what you'd get maybe in a comic. But you have full cross hatching. You just have layers of color that are put on top of it, probably like a 4-color process. So it ends up having a mixed media effect that I think in this case really works. You have this painted sort of smoke and these inked dragons and demonic creatures and orcs all clustered together. I love the way that these are presented. I love the way they look, and somehow in the kind of orgy of detail, you start gathering impressions about what Unno was really like, the horror of this sort of dark, evil place with burning fires and dragons and whatever other creatures Melkor was creating. Let's look at some of the other art here too as well. So you have pictures of hobbits. You have an image of Gollum here that I really like, because this image of Gollum, if you guys have seen the movies, that's pretty much him. That's very much what he looks like. These webbed feet. Maybe his feet are a little bit less webbed in the movie, but this over-enlarged skull, slightly over-enlarged eyes, but a distorted hobbit, a distorted human is what you end up looking at. And of course, these images of hobbits, always great here too. We have some full color plates from, say, The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, a great painting of Smaug the dragon. And this is actually, again, an ink drawing that has had color put on top of it, so it ends up having a mixed media effect with the painting and the ink mixed together. This great picture of the Battle of Five Armies looking quite chaotic, as you see up here. All of this ink up here, it just has a great effect. And I love the art here. So this is a book that I really, really enjoyed. And if you haven't ever seen it or you've never picked it up, it's a really cool one to have and add to your collection. A lot of the images that exist in it are really good expressions of my imagination with Lord of the Rings. Far darker in some cases than what we got with movies or with other illustrations. Things which really go right to the heart of imagination rather than a layer above, or rather than looking completely realistic. They look like a deep and visceral imagining of what we're trying to see here. The stylistic semi-medieval version of an elephant in profile for the Mumakil or the Oliphant. I just really, really enjoyed these illustrations, and I love the descriptions. So for anyone that's really interested in kind of a compendium of Tolkien lore with some really great art, I think this is just a great book to pick up. And if you have it, let me know what you think about it down below. I'd love to have some other opinions or some other memories that are associated with this. But to me, all of this is kind of like a pure nostalgia for when this kind of stuff didn't really exist in a form that is visually digestible easily, like a movie or things like that. We had to imagine these images, and indeed I love a lot of the portraits of the elves and humans in it. There's something rather special about them, and you'll notice all the women, as I've talked about on the channel before, they have very few lines on their faces, which is part of what makes them very beautiful. They are an idealization. So it's an idealized version of what's in here rather than the thing itself. So thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think about this book and anything else. Of course, I write fantasy literature as well. Newest fantasy book is actually Crown of Sight. It's an easy 2-hour read. You can pick this up as an ebook for 99 cents on Amazon.com. And of course, if you join my mailing list, you'll get Water of Awakening for free. And that's the one that I'm really have a lot of fondness for writing. So check that out, and I will see you guys next time.